Hi there. Good to see so many.
Morning, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. How are everyone doing? How's the weather there in Spain, Andrea?
It's very nice.
Yeah,
Sunny, 31 degrees Celsius.
31? Wow. Cool. Nice to hear. So welcome everyone. Dotan, you're here. Good. Adam, Ben.
Hey,
Yeah.
everyone. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess I can start sharing my screen. So I didn't know, Dotan, if you should show up, so therefore I didn't add the topic of OpenTelemetry to the agenda today. But if
Appreciate
we have
it.
time, we can of course bring it in. Would you like to talk about that today?
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Excited to do that.
Perfect. So then let's do that as well. We can move it on to the agenda then.
Are we doing, since I'm new in the forum, are we doing it, shall we update the attendance on this in HackMD? I'm on the doc, but I wasn't sure if, okay.
Please do.
Okay, so
you have
I'll
link
fill it up right after my thing. Great, yeah, I have it. I'm already on the doc, but we didn't know if to add it. Great, so hi everyone. My name is Dotan Horvitz. I'm a CNCF ambassador. On my day job, I work for Logs.io, an observability vendor, and the topic of today is I'm also active with regards to OpenTelemetry, several angles, and one angle that is in particular of interest for this forum is something that I brought up, an OTEP. Now it's an official OTEP, an extension proposal for addressing CI/CD as observability as part of OpenTelemetry in terms of the semantic conventions and so on. So maybe would you like maybe to me to share the screen and show the so we have it in front of us while we speak?
Yeah, I think we can do that. Before we go there, I can just
okay.
say some words about what else we could talk about today, and then see if we will have time. Maybe this will take the whole hour, so that's fine then, I guess.
Oh no, it won't take the whole hour. So if you want to cover other agenda items, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so we will take that afterwards, and so we focus on this first, I guess. But we should revisit the pull request that Ben has provided and that is updated recently, which talks something about Oktoberfest, and we should see if there are any SDK updates and integration updates as well. And then if you have other topics, of course, we can try to fit that in as well. But I don't think we have any action items, and now we know already that Dotan is new here. We have heard about you. So you're free to take over the sharing and
okay, so if you can just give me the sharing.
Yes.
Oh, now I have it. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Very good. So actually, this is not the tab I wanted. I wanted the tab with the proposal, which is this one. Very good. So, and by the way, just as a reference, beyond the OTEP, I have a podcast called Open Observability Talk. So I devoted an episode that covered this topic, the broader topic, not just the OTEP, but the challenges of monitoring observability on the podcast. And here I just even showed that so we can see Oleg from the CDF discussed that, and it was very exciting and good discussion, trying to raise more awareness to the very challenge. So going very to the essentials. Essentially, you're all familiar with OpenTelemetry, I assume. Let me know if you need any words of introduction or anything beyond that.
I think that the 2-minute introduction would be good, or something like, if that's
okay.
fine.
So, sorry.
Yeah, if that's okay with you, I think like.
Okay, sorry. Yes, of course. So OpenTelemetry is an incubating project under the CNCF. Essentially, it started as a as a merge of Open Tracing and Open Census. For those who recall these predecessors, and it offers a unified and of course vendor agnostic standard way for instrumenting applications for telemetry, primarily logs, metrics, and traces, and we're now adding more like continuous profiling and collecting them in a uniform manner, and essentially exposing and transmitting in a uniform manner. So it has both the client library pieces, a piece in different programming languages, an SDK, an API, auto instrumentation agents for various programming languages. It has an OpenTelemetry collector that is able to collect centrally the telemetry, both from these SDKs, but also from various types of infrastructure components. It could be Kubernetes, Docker, Kafka. It could be obviously Jenkins and other CI/CD tools in our case, and so on. And it can then do all sorts of processing, aggregation, etc., and then export it to any backend of choice. Lots of exporters to many standard backends, including all the big cloud providers, including all the monitoring and observability vendors, including downstream pipelines like to Kafka, to open source tools such as Prometheus and Jaeger and others. So this is very much in essence the whole chain, and one underlying thing that is not a component in its own right, but very, very important, especially to our conversation, is the OpenTelemetry specification that defines the API specification, the APA spec, and the data spec for all of these. So all the, for example, SDK programming language SDKs I mentioned, they all conform to one uniform specification with respective semantic conventions and so on and so forth. So this is really OpenTelemetry in a nutshell. And of course, the main use case is monitoring the production systems, the regular DevOps monitoring, but the release pipeline is, or the CI/CD pipeline is something that is just as critical. And this is why I propose for OpenTelemetry to be able to serve these use cases as well. I'll stop here and I'll pause here and see if there are any questions before I go on.
No questions for me.
Great. And I should state that there are already uses out there of OpenTelemetry for collecting CI/CD observability data. If I scroll down to some examples that appear here, I think I brought the Jenkins OpenTelemetry plugin as a good example of a CDF project, of course, that with this simple plugin, you can just export these and the telemetry from Jenkins natively, and then visualize with any backend that you wish. Both traces data you can see here, and I think there's also examples of metric data. You can see here the pipeline, how it works. So the implementations are there. However, it's non-standardized, so it's each one solved its case on a case-by-case basis. And one of the advantages that OpenTelemetry offers us is to standardize on these and create a language for doing that in a uniform manner. And when I proposed the extension proposal, the OTEP, it was very, for me, it was very clear that we should definitely be looking into CDEvents as a, and you can see here, by the way, this paragraph where I flag to the CNCF community and specifically to the OpenTelemetry one about the activity that you've been running and the CDEvents. and suggesting to look into that as a something that could serve as the language with which we can describe. So this is a good place of synergy, I think, between the foundations and also between the initiatives, because I'm not a CI/CD expert as much as this forum, definitely. By all means, we need people coming from the CI/CD side that can say what are the needs, and specifically from this project that can flag what, how much of a real alignment there is, and what kind of synergy model we can do between these for this specific initiative. So I think this is very much in a nutshell. I think you have the link already on the HackMD, so I don't need to share it with you. Thanks for putting it there. But happy to delve more, or more importantly for me is to actually hear your feedback and initial ideas about this.
Cool. So, so I'm quite familiar with OpenTelemetry. I've made some fixes to some various plugins for the collectors and whatnot. So, yeah. I'll have to probably read through the full proposal. I mean, obviously, going through the quick summary, I don't want to, say anything that without having read it first. But the first thing that kind of I'm a little bit worried about is because OpenTelemetry is very granular. That's not to say CDEvents cannot be, but it's at a much higher level, right? So I want to make sure that we're not leaking that granularity into CDEvents. That's kind of my biggest concern, and ensuring that that tracing, or OpenTelemetry in this case, continues to do what it's good at, right? Which is tracing, right? And CDEvents continues to strive for its goal, which is interoperability. That's not to say that we can't use both these tools to kind of get to these goals, or to solve these problems. But I just want to make sure that we understand that that tracing is a very different thing. Because the reason why I say that is a lot of the times when I'm talking CDEvents, especially internally at my company, there's always confusion on what CDEvents is and what tracing is, and they always seem to mix the two. So I just want to be clear on that. So yeah. So like I said, so I'll go through that proposal, and then is it a PR, or is it just a yeah, okay, so it's just or it's an issue? Like, what is it?
It's an issue. The process for OTEP, actually very similar to what they do in Kubernetes or in similar. So
okay, cool.
Proposal as an issue on the.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Let me read through that, and I'm sure I'll have comments, because like I said, I'm very familiar with OpenTelemetry, and then we can kind of go with that, and see what it looks like.
Great.
But
Thank you very
yeah.
much for the feedback, Ben. By the way, just for my background, since I'm not familiar with all the personas, can you just give the context of which company you work at that you mentioned?
Oh yes, I'm at Apple. So we use OpenTelemetry for all our CI, or well, mostly for our CD stuff. CI does have it, but we're working in the process of connecting it. But I'm part of the Spinnaker team. So anything Spinnaker related, CD related, usually goes through us. Even though that there's multiple teams that work in CD, they usually use our stuff. But yeah, so Spinnaker team at Apple.
Sounds good. And a few things. First of all, thank you again for sharing your thoughts, and I definitely relate to that. But I want to just clarify some things. OpenTelemetry is not only for distributed tracing. OpenTelemetry, as I mentioned, is a unified manner of collecting all sorts of telemetry, including tracing, of course, but also metrics and logs. Perhaps you don't use it for all the telemetry types, but this is important to emphasize. So it's not tied to a specific telemetry type. And furthermore, it's extensible. So we're actually now adding continuous profiling, so extending beyond the 3 pillars of observability, if you may. So the underlying OpenTelemetry is not supposed to be bound to specific types, rather than a unified manner of collecting different types. telemetry, and this is why I don't see contradiction specifically to tracing, and I don't think that it should intervene. I can tell you that we've put in my company open telemetry to use for CI/CD observability, and the resulting monitoring and observability that we've put to use. And by the way, I should have mentioned maybe, but I have a blog post that I wrote about this that can help maybe.
Oh, can you share that, please?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's part of the
please.
OTEP as well. I provided just as a reference, but the idea is to I'll put it here on the chat for the team, and maybe you can also afterwards put it on the HackMD as well. But essentially, it shows. Let me just quickly share again my screen. I think visual is always better than speaking, at least for me. So if I just quickly show you just the visuals of it. So this is what we did, and the idea is, as you can see, actually I showed CI/CD health monitoring with the Elk Stack and OpenSearch CI/CD environment monitoring with Prometheus, and performance monitoring with Jaeger. So I'll jump straight to Jaeger because you mentioned tracing, and I'll show you. This is a classic view, and actually we saw that also. And this is done, by the way, with the Jaeger, with the OpenTelemetry plugin for Jaeger. And as you can see here, very easily, the Jenkins prod, you can see here, depicted essentially the pipeline, and each step of the pipeline depicted as a trace. This is an approach. It can fit or not, but it's the tracing here is just a means to represent the different steps as a trace. So you can see it in a Gantt chart and so on, and different examples that use metrics data. In this example, you can see different types from infrastructure monitoring through the container level, through to what is JVM, like heap memory and so on, all the way down to, let me see if I haven't shown, but there are also specifically Jenkins types of like the executors and the queues and everything like that. I was actually sure that it was here somewhere. No, that looks like more. Okay, but anyway, you can also visualize, of course, the metrics themselves from the executors and queues and everything within Jenkins itself. So, and with the Elk Stack, it was more like again using Kibana visualizations to show things like the failure to success rate and per machine and per this and per that. So it's really what you'd expect. So the idea is that ultimately CI/CD pipeline boils down to different types of telemetry that represent what goes on in the health of our pipeline, whether it's and the level of the framework, such as Jenkins in this example, or the underlying, I don't know, JVM or so on and so forth. So I hope that I was able to clarify some of that.
Yes, you absolutely did, and I think it was just more of a concern, like more of my worry, like I said, it might not even pertain to like what you're talking about. I'm just saying, just make sure that we're not like stomping over each other's toes and making sure that one idea is not leaking into the other. Like the whole like I said, like the granularity of tracing. But yeah, you're right. Like OpenTelemetry obviously isn't just one thing. But one thing that I think is kind of interesting is maybe this is why you're part of this meeting, is that CDEvents does have some telemetry. So yeah, definitely there's some intersection there. And I'm excited. Like I said, let me first read the proposal as well as the blog to kind of get a bit better understanding. And then if you plan on attending the next meeting, I'll have a lot more comments. But yeah, because like I said, OpenTelemetry is fairly complex. I mean, like it does a lot. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding the scope of the proposal.
Yeah, so the proposal focuses, and maybe I should have clarified better. By the way, Andrea, I see that you raised your hand, so let me switch to that. But just want to mention one thing that I maybe have not emphasized. The focus is on the specification, the schema, the specification. Essentially, the components themselves, instrumentation and collector and so on, are less relevant for what's the use case, the underlying use case. What I'm talking about is the modeling. You can also, as I said, you can also use today OpenTelemetry to fetch, collect, aggregate, and export CI/CD data. I think the main advantage that we can offer, and what I would be curious to explore with you folks, is the modeling and making it a first-level citizen by having relevant representations of the CDEvents, essentially. So it's mainly about the schema, but again, the proposal I think may shed more light. And there is an active, there's a channel on the CNCF workspace, Slack workspace that I opened with that. So if any of you is also active on the CNCF side of the house, it's a good place to maybe carry on the discussion and start doing the intersection between the groups. Anyway, Andrea, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you, Dolan, for joining today and for writing the proposal and for including CDEvents and the work that we're doing in your proposal. So
just sorry to stop you. I should have said I presented CDEvents independently of the episode that I just mentioned earlier on with Andy from Dynatrace, I think over a year ago already. So I had an episode that was about where I presented to my audience the CD Foundation and the CDEvents project and lots of that. So I was happy to give a stage to the CDF also in other episodes, irrespective of this specific topic of CI/CD observability. But just and then obviously a Captain project. So just as a side note for those who are interested to learn more about the stage I gave to CD Foundation. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, and thanks a lot for that. It's certainly much appreciated. So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out in my mind how this would work, and maybe you can help me understand a bit. So from CDEvents point of view, I think the way we structure the specification is we have a data model that we represent as a JSON blob. And then we have what we call the binding, which is basically how this JSON blob goes into something that is then transported over the network. And the binding that we define today is cloud events, which means that it's also an abstraction layer cloud event. So it means that you can transport CDEvents over all the kind of bindings as cloud event support, which are things like obviously HTTP. So HTTP plus JSON payload, or you can do things like MQTT, NATS, or all the bindings that cloud event support, basically. So I could see, for instance, from a CDEvent point of view, that you could imagine transporting a CDEvent type of payload the way that is kind of described today is a JSON blob, and somehow render it in OpenTelemetry message. Sorry, I don't know the correct terminology for OpenTelemetry or payload. But what I'm trying to understand is how deep the definition on OpenTelemetry would be, because we have a kind of versioning schema for CDEvents, and the specification continues to evolve. So if we did something like this, where we say, well, OpenTelemetry defines like telemetry format for CI/CD pipelines, and that is based out of CDEvents, would it actually go and specify the single fields that are included and how the structure of the data is, and the data model in details, or you think it would be kind of a link into the CDEvent specification? And so I'm not sure how that actually would work. And the concern I have is that if we redescribe the same things that we have on CDEvent side inside the OpenTelemetry specification, that means that every time we do changes on CDEvents, then we might have to propagate those changes back into OpenTelemetry, and then the things could diverge and we could get into like very complicated situations. So I guess this is one concern that I have in my mind.
I think it's a valid concern, and I'm not sure that I have the full answer for you. First, because I'm not intimately familiar with CDEvents, and my envisioning of the, and I'm not going into the dependency management, because if we do link OpenTelemetry to CDEvents, obviously there's the question of how do you keep the version matching and so on. I haven't gone down that path of actually defining a process in which, like any other dependency, by the way, we need to formalize. But I think it's too early. I think the first analysis would be on the fundamental match, because my suggestion was very high level, as I mentioned, but we need to drill down into the details. I zoomed it in scope of OpenTelemetry. I mentioned OpenTelemetry is very broad. It has also, I should have mentioned OTLP, which is an OpenTelemetry protocol that allows to transmit telemetry data in a essentially with any node, between any two nodes. So in this place, probably there's some of the questions that you addressed or you raised are about the protocol that transmits the data. So the specification defines the data model, but then the data model is formalized and the packaged as a payload as part of the OTLP, the OpenTelemetry protocol. And it supports different combinations. So gRPC, GTP, you have JSON, binary protobuf, and so on. So these are the details of how to package. But going back to the data modeling, which is, I think, the heart and core of it, the question is if we can find the match in alignment. Maybe also, as Ben said, maybe the granularity is different. So they tackle it in different resolutions that are not matching. So I would start there, see if there is even the essential match in terms of the data modeling and what we're trying to do. But if there is this essential alignment, then we can take it to the next level and say, okay, what kind of synergy we can do? Is that just in the data modeling, or can we take it as a holistic payload that we can just transport over OTLP and so on? This is very initial thoughts, but as I said, your inputs here are very much appreciated.
I think one thing that could potentially help. So I have a document where it kind of goes through like a life cycle, kind of like payload, from system to system, but it's in CDEvents language. Would that help to kind of share that document with you to give you an idea of the scope and what the models potentially look like from system to system, or do you already have some sort of idea on what that looks like?
No, I'd love to see any documentation, any more learning that I can accumulate around that may help, and maybe worthwhile, maybe having a spin-off discussion where maybe just to, with respect to everyone's time, maybe one of you or two of you, and we can walk through that and try to churn through this and see. Maybe I'll bring someone else from the OTEL side that is if we need more specialty in specific sites, because it's a massive project, far bigger than CDEvents. So many sides to it in different. Just taking the SDKs, there is like a whole work group just for the Java one that is independent, obviously, from .NET, from others, and we have people that specialize in these specific languages and the respective frameworks where you do the instrumentation. You need to instrument, Spring or Express for a node, and but each one is its own domain and some spun of an eBPF auto instrumentation based on eBPF, and it's very massive. So I'm definitely not the expert on all the sides of OpenTelemetry. If we get down to the specific wireline representation, I may pull in some more intelligent people than me to represent. But the question is, if beyond if there is like if starting, as I said, by the data modeling and going over that and looking at it together and seeing if the modeling, the schema that is there, the types of events that it represents. I know that it's also broader than just CDEvents. You have cloud events, so maybe it's even a broader scope than I'm aware of. Is something that could somehow align. That's my initial sense.
And I think that that's kind of the goal of the document that I'm going to share with you, is that it's basically, these payloads are CDEvents. So like, it'll give you a really clear picture of like what is included and what you might consider missing. So it will really help facilitate whether or not it'll work for you, I think, pretty quickly. So that's why I kind of suggested this path, because we can look at what is actually happening with the CDEvents and seeing if it matches your scope of what you're trying to do. Because I did read over a little bit of your document, but like you had said, it's very high level. So I was like, okay, I'm not too sure yet, based off of what we said today, on of what the next steps are. So that's why I'm kind of like proposing this, and I think we should probably have a follow-up meeting in particular for OTEL and CDEvents, and potentially go over this doc and the models. Maybe we start with the models, go through a kind of a simple workflow, kind of showing how they would map to an actual CI/CD system, and then talking about how this proposal will utilize these CDEvent models and see, you know, where we land. Does that make sense? Is that a good next step, do you feel?
Yes, I love it. I'm happy to review the doc, and then maybe just, as you said, just take one simple common flow and see if we can envision that based on the CDEvents modeling and the, let's call it OTEL transport in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and see if this is something that we can see, at least in very broad strokes, working together, and take it from there to more concrete and generalized mechanism. And this will help us also map the next steps, the relevant people to loop in based on that scope, and take it from there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
So-
I'll share. Yeah, sorry, Andre.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say,
Go ahead,
I'll share that doc, and then we can start discussing, like, you know, whoever can start planning that meeting. Maybe Andre, you're the best person for that, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a kind of like small separate working group, at least, you know, one initial meeting, and then we can decide if we want to continue. And I think, as you said, Dotan, if there are more people that you want to bring from your side, and yeah, I would try and set up, maybe try and find a day that works for people, where we could meet again, so we can continue this discussion with a audience that wants to engage with it. But I'm definitely, yeah, excited to have this conversation. So thanks again, Jotan, for starting this.
Thank you very much for having me, and looking forward to following up. Thanks, Ben, for the great feedback, and Andrea. And I'll share the links. Some of them I think are already on the HackMD, but I will try and share most of the relevant links with you if you want to reach out to me. I'm on the CDF workspace, or on CNCF's one. Happy to also follow up offline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I also think it would be good to aim for a very simple proof of concept or something in this area, if we could somehow make that happen. It's good with documentation, but it's also good to see things in practice. But of course, that requires some more effort to be put into it before we can get such. But first, we need to understand what are the borders between CDEvents and OpenTelemetry, and how do they overlap, or which one should refer to which, and so on. Which is still not really clear to me based on the discussions today, but also I haven't fully understood the proposal there, so in the pull request, so I will also look into it a bit more. Yeah. Okay, are there any more comments or questions to Dotan or about this topic before we move on? Andrea, you will call for a separate session then about this, I guess.
Yes, and please don't let me know if I should invite someone else, or maybe you can add to the invite. Would it be fine if I set it up in the CDF public calendar so that we have it as a public meeting? So one-off for now.
Are you talking about the follow-up with regards to what we said?
Yeah.
Let's think what was the right forum. I need to review. I want to review Ben's document before, just to get myself better acquainted with the scope and get a sense of that. But yeah, let's put it on the calendar and see what's relevant for the meeting.
Yeah, I'll share it within the next soon.
Sure, no pressure. I'm just saying I need to make sure that I'm more familiar, I guess, in order for me to be to see who I think, at least in the first sense, might make sense.
Yeah. So let's then think offline first. I mean, when you share the document, and if Dalton you have a chance to review it, there's no time pressure or rush whatsoever. I'm just saying. And so I think once we feel we are ready, I can schedule then the meeting so we can meet and discuss further. Okay.
Sounds good. Perfect. Thank you all.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah. So then I guess we should go in a bit to the connecting events pull request, which I know, Ben, you have updated recently.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I didn't look at it since you updated the last week, I guess, or days.
Yep. No worries.
Would
Yeah,
you like
I think
to
was that
just share what you've done a bit?
yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So based off of Emil and I's discussion, I went ahead and kind of changed a couple things. Well, first being that stating that there could be potentially many architectures with the link service and so on and so forth. And then I changed the UML the sequence diagram that I have to actually be the proxy of the event bus to the link service, just because I felt like that was the thing that me and you agreed on. I think that makes actually once we started talking about it, I was like, actually that makes the most sense. I kind of went with that design. And then I also updated some of the link types, which me and you had talked about in the PR specifically, which is like artifacts, like grouping of the simplicity, like things being artifacts and so on and so forth. So I added that, and then I also corrected like a few grammar related things, like smaller things. But that was primarily it. So I did read through it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it should now suffice for at least us here at Apple. So and hopefully addresses your concerns, Emil. So those sequence diagrams, they take a while, so please. But yeah, so that I think that it makes a lot more sense now too. And then if you go down to below, I think it shows the no, it's actually above, sorry. To the link types or event kinds. Yeah, there we go. So I just have event kind. I just have artifact, build, CI, CD, and test. I don't know if we want anything else. I was trying to think of every possibility, but if we feel like we need more or need to remove some, let me know. I just added what I felt was intuitive, to be honest. So that's kind of the idea there. So so there's a bunch of definitions, and then I changed the from link type to relation. I think relation makes more sense, just having to and from fields in them. And then group, just to group things, just make that easier to a single ID. So So that's kind of the idea. So I think we're at a pretty good place. I think we're at kind of the final steps of this proposal. So it probably just needs a few more good eyes on it, and then I think we should be in a pretty good place. So yeah. Oh, and then I changed global ID to chain ID. I chose chain as I had said in the Slack thread because we're using links, and I was like, chain links, it kind of like they kind of go together. So I was like, oh, it kind of makes sense. So I really like that name. So that's another thing that I ended up changing. So yeah, if you guys have time, please review this, because like I said, it's kind of at the end. I feel like it's at the end where it's probably going to be merged here pretty soon. So if we can get anyone's eyes on it to really look at it and make sure that it encompasses their use cases, that would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, so I'm still a bit struggling to understand exactly what an example would be of these objects here. So I see this is an example of a relation object between an artifact and something else, whatever that something else is, which is not really exactly clear to me. So I think that's one thing, and maybe I'm not sure how explained it could be, but maybe it's just me who is stupid. But I don't know, a simple example of a to relation and a from relation, or
do you want like
yeah.
Do you want like an actual like real life example? I could put like an actual example of like if you have a CI system and it does a build, it sends these links, and then
I guess you could have used these as examples and say what would then the
they would look like.
These relations here look like.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
If that's not too much to
No. I'd rather have it be clear, because like I said, I don't want people to read this document and be confused. So more data is completely fine with me. I just wanted, like, when I was writing this, I was like, oh, this should be clear. But obviously, if people are still getting confused on it, I'm like, obviously I'm not doing something right. So I need to, I'll go back and modify this to, well, I'll say number one's payload looks like this too, and then just list all what the payloads look like. And it might be quite large, but I might just do like the first like 9.
Just keep the interesting fields, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Different examples, because not all fields. I mean, the event IDs obviously are interesting, and some relational IDs. I guess one obvious question that people could have when looking at this is that we see now that the CI system here sent 2 different events first, and then sends 2 other events. One is for the link, the relation, and one is for the event, or the actual data, so to say, and the second is for the relation. I don't know if we should expand a bit on the argumentation why we actually need this as 2 separate things, why we couldn't include the relation in the event itself.
Well, technically,
technically
it's an array, right? So it could be multiple links that's just a bulk send. The reason why I didn't do that is I wanted it to be atomic, so it was more clear. But obviously that did not help. So I will try to figure out a good way of doing that. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So you say it would be multiple relations sent for one event.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So that's maybe good to explain somewhere then. But that's one reason, obviously, then to have that. But still, I think multiple relations could also be an array within the event, the first event sent. This event has these multiple relations to it in the event itself.
Yep, absolutely, it can be. But like I said, I wanted to keep it as atomic and as simple as possible.
To me, that complicates it when you split it out. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No worries. But yeah,
let me. track of these IDs in multiple places more. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make sense of them. These, if you look at the message or event bus here only, these events that come here, they just include like IDs and relations between the IDs. They don't include any in data, right? So you don't know what is these behind these IDs really. To get that, you also need to listen to the other events really. So as a consumer of these events,
yeah, so that's something that tracing has solved, and I was kind of going probably with how trace, like I said, this is more on implementation, and I wanted to leave that out. But how tracing solves this is that they have this notion of like context, right? And so when a trace comes in, it creates a trace context, and any span that gets added or connected or whatnot refers to this context, whether that's discreetly or intentionally, but it's able to get that information. So that's kind of like what I was thinking for the links, is that it would kind of work the same way.
So I mean that all link events here have the trace context of the
yes.
previously sent event somehow.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably again my what do I say, inexperience of tracing.
yeah, no worries. And like I said, like I wanted to keep, the architecture out, and obviously like a little bit has leaked in, because like sometimes you need a little bit of architecture to kind of like explain it so it doesn't get too confusing, because like when it's just high level, people might be like, how do I use this, or how is this supposed to work? So maybe that's something we can include, maybe not the architecture, but more so just how it could be potentially used, or how it could be potentially solved. Like that is one particular way of going about it. But yeah, so like I said, I'll think about it, like what's the best way of dealing with that without introducing like a whole architecture in the document.
Yeah. But because I was thinking if this whole structure then could be an optional relation object within the event type itself, or an array of such relation objects that would be able to provide the same information. It's just that everything is kept within the event and not as a separate thing. Or do you think then that the entity that actually sends the relation event is some other entity in the CI system maybe, and not the same entity that actually sends the CD event?
So it could be both. So tracing allows for both. So tracing has this concept of a collector, which basically does what you're talking about. Like I said, that's more in the architecture, and I just want to make sure that we get just the use cases or like the modeling makes sense. That's all I care about at this point. And then maybe, because like these last few CDEvents, we've been talking a lot about like architecture. I wonder if it makes sense to start that document, like just a tech doc. Let me think. I'm trying to figure out the best way to like keep the two documents like separate, not having too much architecture in this doc, as well as being clear enough in this doc where things could potentially work. But the issue is, if you look at like Open Telemetry's doc on tracing, like any of their proposals, they just talk about like the model. Like if you looked at, or if we just saw Dotan's, right? Like he has no notion, or he's not explaining like the architecture or anything, right? Or how things are communicating or anything. It's very high level. And I wanted to go with that approach, but I feel like we're leaking a little bit into the architecture territory. So
I don't know if I really agree. I mean, to me, the relations between events are not really architecture. It's another data object. The relation is just a data object as well in the event.
Right. But you were talking about like sending, if it's sent just by itself or to a collector, right? Like
okay, yeah, that part.
Yeah. And that's what I was referring to. So, but yeah, I think think a good idea is, let me first add the payloads. Let's go with that first. Adding the payloads for the ones that, yeah, for the sequence diagram. Let's start there, and hopefully that should make it more clear. And then I'll start thinking about a tech doc. I mean, I could even write a simple architecture that could be copied and pasted in there, but maybe just have it as a part of this doc as an entry into that doc. That might be also an option. And we can always remove that later when the tech doc is done. So maybe that's a better option. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I'll just write something.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Diagram. So break out, what parts did you mean then? The non-specific, event-specific parts from this document into a tech doc. I mean, this is in some sense a tech doc. It's not yet a pull request towards the spec for. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
This could maybe be the tech doc that holds together all
things.
The information about links, and then it could, of course, have these examples broken out to the examples folder in the spec repo and those things as well. But I think it's good to continue within this document for some more iterations. We'll see. And see where we go from there, because then it will be easier to see what headings do we have in this document and what is worth breaking out to what kind of document.
Right. And that's what I was thinking about, including it in this doc at least, just because if you're going between two docs, like I feel like that could, you could get potentially lost. So I think having everything in one doc and then having things refer to the, to itself is a lot easier to make sense of things. So yeah, okay, let me.
Yeah. It's a mouthful, this document already, but I mean it could also contain some more examples and then still fit, I think, without breaking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Let me do that then. Let me describe a very simple. Well, it's not just one architecture. There's multiple architectures. Because like I said, tracing allows you to send traces any way you see fit. Actually, you can send them to a collector, you can send them as bulk, you can send them one-on-one, so it's really kind of up to you. But yeah, I'll include some possible architectures, and we can kind of go from there. I think that makes sense.
I'm not sure if it makes sense as well to have two alternatives for some time. Then we probably need to stick for one, but just evaluating, would it be an alternative to include the information in the event itself, or what would be the drawbacks of that solution compared to and then drawbacks with this solution compared to the other one. So maybe just elaborating a bit on pros and cons for that part, whether you feel you can do it as part of your updates now, or if we should do it separately, I don't know. But
I think it's fine. Okay, yeah, let me go ahead and do that, and we can figure out what else is needed. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me first do that, because like I said, depending on how how we respond to the changes, it might change things. So I let's just do one step at a time and kind of get things figured out. So okay, cool. Let me do that, and then ensure that things make sense, and then kind of go from there.
Good, perfect. Consider architectural differences or something. Can't spell. Architecture. Something like that. Yep, we're home. Good. Thank you so much, Ben, for keeping up with me and for
Yeah, no worries, no
open me.
worries.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate your work you're doing here.
Yeah,
So
no
just
worries.
a few words on the remaining topics. We're almost out of time, but Oktoberfest, I see we still don't have too many issues there in the project. I don't know, Adam, have you looked into if there are any Java SDK issues or something that you think would be suitable for the Oktoberfest parts, or maybe something else you're working on?
I
You're also
haven't
working on
looked into anything else. I mean, I haven't looked into any Java SDK issues, but I'm currently kind of investigating into Flux CD for the last bit.
Is there anything in that space you think would deserve a hackathon issue, or do you think it's too early to involve hackathon people in?
Might be too early. I'm still kind of investigating how useful a CDEvents connection with Flux would be.
Okay, fair enough. Right. So that's about that. So any ideas you have for issues? Any of you? Appreciate it if you could share it. SDK updates, I didn't add any because I don't have any myself. I intended actually to look into the SDK repos myself before this meeting, but I didn't manage to do that. Other things came up, so I don't have any updates there. When it comes to integration updates, since last meeting, this proposal that was mentioned in last meeting was now merged. Now I can't confirm whether that means that it will for sure be included in the next version of Tekton, or if this is just a step.
Wait, what is that? Is that the CDEvents proposal?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool. Okay.
So events is implementable. It's done by Andrea, and not exactly sure how much this entails or contains, but this looks like mostly a proposal, doesn't it? It's not really a something. Oh man, I can't really say. It's a TEP, right? Yeah, it's a TEP. So this is then, I guess, the approval for creating the implementation later on.
Okay, cool.
Yes, like it was for Spinnaker and others. Yeah. So it's not the actual implementation, but we're getting there, it seems. So approaching.
All right, awesome.
And that's the end of the agenda for today. Any other business you'd like to raise? Mention?
No, I think that was pretty much it, at least from my side.
So on the Open Source Summit this week, I know Andrea and Fatih were there. The CD Mini Summit was this Monday. And Andrew, Adam, your colleague, was there as well in the panel. It was a great discussion about some developer experience stuff related to CI/CD and such. So those recordings should be out in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Yep.
And also Fatih and Andrea had a talk on the One Summit, networking summit, also Monday, which was also good, where they presented the background for interoperability and CDEvents within CDF, and the relation actually to the areas where it comes from, to a lot of good basics there. I didn't hear much questions on that discussions, but maybe they did get some feedback after it. So anyway, that was interesting. So yeah, then we're done for today. So see you in next meeting, and good to have you all on board.
All right, cool. All right, thanks
care.
everyone. All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.